They say virtue protects the pure, that goodness always finds its way back, that the world, no matter how cruel, will eventually reward the righteous. But what if that's the most dangerous lie ever told? Picture this: a king standing before his crumbling throne. His army retreats, his people scatter. The crown on his head weighs heavier than ever before. He had ruled with mercy. He believed in honor. And when his enemies plotted deceit, he refused to lower himself to their level. He kept his word. He fought fair. He trusted promises sealed with smiles. And so, he lost. Not because he was weak, but because he believed others would play by the same rules. He died with clean hands, and an empire soaked in betrayal. Centuries later, one man dared to whisper what others only thought in silence. Niccolò Machiavelli, the man branded as the devil of politics, the prophet of manipulation. But Machiavelli wasn't celebrating cruelty. He was documenting reality. He saw what the world refused to admit: that virtue, when practiced blindly, becomes a weapon against itself. That goodness without power is devoured by those who understand both. In a world built on appearances, virtue can become a mask, a beautiful illusion used to control, deceive, justify. And those who cling to it, without understanding the darkness beneath it, are always the first to fall. Machiavelli shattered the comforting myths of morality. He peeled back the veil, revealing something deeply unsettling: that power does not bow to virtue. Virtue bows to power. The question, then, is not whether we should be good, but whether goodness alone is enough to survive the world as it truly is. Machiavelli did not worship evil. He simply understood that goodness alone cannot survive it. To understand Machiavelli, you must first step into his world. Florence, early 1500s. A city draped in beauty, yet poisoned by deceit. The air smelled of incense and ambition. Church bells rang above whispers of conspiracy. Every smile in the court hid a blade. Every alliance was a performance waiting to collapse. Machiavelli lived in the shadows of kings and cardinals, men who spoke of God, yet ruled through treachery. He watched as moral rulers, wrapped in righteousness, were devoured by their own purity. He saw how sermons of virtue could disguise the hunger for domination. And so, he began to see the world differently. To him, morality was not the currency of survival. Power was. He understood that the world rewards not the good, but the shrewd, not the honest, but the strategic. And while others prayed for justice, Machiavelli observed the quiet mechanics of manipulation. When he wrote The Prince, it was not a guidebook for tyrants. It was a mirror, cold, sharp, and unflinching. He was not teaching people how to be monsters. He was revealing that monsters often wear halos. Machiavelli dared to separate two ideas the world had long confused: virtue and virtu. Virtue, as religion taught it, was moral purity, goodness for its own sake. But virtu, as Machiavelli redefined it, was the power to act effectively in a corrupt world, to adapt, to endure, to bend morality when survival demanded it. He wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both," not because he despised love, but because he understood how easily love can be betrayed. In Machiavelli's eyes, the world was not divided between good and evil. It was divided between those who see how it truly works, and those blinded by how they wish it to be. He saw morality not as a virtue, but as a tool, a performance, a convenient weapon, wielded by the powerful to control those too innocent to question it. Machiavelli's revelation was never a call to abandon morality, but to unmask it, to see through the theater of righteousness that governs human affairs, to recognize that in the grand game of power, even goodness, can become a disguise. Machiavelli understood power in politics. But centuries later, psychology revealed something even darker. That power doesn't only rule through force. It rules through morality. Societies learn that people don't need chains. When they can be bound by shame, they don't need prisons. When they can be taught to police themselves, the easiest way to control someone isn't by threatening their life. It's by convincing them that their thoughts are sinful, that their instincts are evil, that obedience is virtue. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the buried, unacknowledged side of our psyche, the anger we repress, the envy we deny, the selfishness we disown. We hide these impulses behind masks of goodness, believing that purity makes us free. But Jung warned, what you repress controls you from the dark. A person who denies their shadow becomes predictable, eager to please, terrified of judgment, desperate to appear good. And such a person is easy to manipulate, because guilt is the perfect leash, and shame is the perfect prison. Nietzsche saw it too. He wrote that societies built on moral ideals often breed resentment and weakness, that morality becomes a tool for the powerless to shame the strong, a way to control vitality, ambition, independence. What begins as a moral compass can easily turn into a moral cage. Look around you. Modern life has not escaped this ancient game. It has perfected it. We now live in digital empires of judgment, where outrage is currency, where reputations burn faster than truth can travel. Cancel culture, moral crusades, performative empathy. They are all new names for an old instinct. Control through righteousness. We have mistaken public virtue for private conscience. We seek purity, not understanding. We perform goodness rather than embody it. And in this endless theater of morality, authenticity becomes dangerous. Complexity becomes suspicious. To question is to risk exile. The same mechanisms Machiavelli observed in royal courts now thrive in comment sections and social media feeds. We call them movements, justice, accountability. But too often, they are simply modern tools of the same old manipulation. Machiavelli warned that those who cling blindly to appearances of virtue become slaves to those who know how to exploit them. He was describing the rulers of Florence, but he could just as easily have been describing us, because the stage has changed, but the script of control remains the same. And if morality can be used to enslave, then perhaps it's time to stop asking how to be good and start asking who defines what good really means. Every moral ideal sounds noble until it collides with the reality of survival. In a perfect world, honesty would be strength, mercy would be rewarded, integrity would always win. But Machiavelli knew, and history proved, that the world is far from perfect. If everyone played fair, virtue would be the highest power. But because most do not, it becomes a liability. This is the realist's dilemma: to remain pure in a world that punishes purity, or to adapt, to play the game, and risk losing yourself in the process. History remembers the martyrs of morality, leaders who refused to bend, even as the world broke them. The man who told the truth and lost his throne. The whistleblower who believed honesty would protect them. The company that upheld ethics, until competitors without ethics devoured them. Goodness alone does not guarantee survival, because the world does not reward sincerity. It rewards strategy. And yet, Machiavelli did not preach corruption. He preached clarity. He wanted humanity to wake up from its moral dream. He saw that morality without realism becomes naivety, but realism without morality becomes cruelty. The art of power lies between the two. The wise realist, unlike the virtuous fool, does not mistake mercy for weakness or cunning for evil. They understand that to preserve goodness, one must first preserve strength. It takes courage to see the ugliness of the world and not become part of it, to understand deceit without practicing it, to recognize manipulation without succumbing to it. That is the balance Machiavelli sought, a virtue anchored not in blindness, but in awareness. He never said, "Be cruel." He said, "Be prepared, because if you cannot confront darkness, darkness will confront you unarmed." In today's world, this dilemma still echoes. In politics, where image outweighs integrity. In business, where honesty is punished more than deceit. In everyday life, where those who play fair must live among those who don't. So what does it mean to be good, truly good, in a corrupt world? Perhaps it means learning to see clearly, even when the truth hurts. To understand the games of power, yet refuse to play them without conscience. To be moral, not because the world demands it, but because you've seen the alternative. Machiavelli's message was never about abandoning virtue. It was about saving it from our own illusions, because virtue that cannot survive reality was never virtue at all. Power rarely shows its true face. It doesn't announce itself with fangs or fire. It smiles. It blesses. It promises to protect. Every tyrant in history has claimed to act for the greater good. Empires burn nations in the name of peace. Churches silence truth in the name of salvation. Corporations exploited millions in the name of opportunity. And every act of domination was wrapped in moral language. Because morality is the most effective disguise power has ever worn. Machiavelli saw this long before it became a pattern. He warned that a ruler must appear virtuous, merciful, faithful, humane, but be willing to act against those virtues when necessity demands it. For appearance, he said, is more powerful than truth. The masses do not see what you are, only what you perform. And if goodness is what they expect, then even deceit must wear the mask of kindness. This is how power survives, not through open brutality, but through moral theater. Look at the world today. Governments justify wars as acts of defense. Tech companies preach connection while mining human attention. Media outlets speak of truth while feeding outrage. Influencers promote virtue while selling envy. Every structure of influence cloaks its hunger for dominance in the soft light of good intentions. They sell morality like a product, branded, marketable, and safe to consume. But the more society worships the image of goodness, the less it recognizes genuine virtue. The louder someone proclaims their moral purity, the more we should ask, what lies beneath it? Because the mask of morality doesn't just protect the corrupt, it blinds the innocent. It convinces the public that power always means protection, that authority always means righteousness. And when that illusion takes hold, evil no longer needs to hide. It simply needs to smile. Machiavelli didn't invent this deception, he revealed it. He understood that power and morality have always danced together, one leading, the other pretending to lead. And those who cannot see the mask mistake performance for principle. The danger, then, isn't virtue itself. It's the illusion of virtue, the performance of goodness, that conceals corruption beneath. Because once morality becomes theater, the audience forgets it's watching a play. They cheer for the hero, while the villain writes the script. There comes a point when philosophy turns inward, when the question of power becomes the question of the soul. Machiavelli taught us to see the world as it is. Jung taught us to see ourselves the same way, because the battle between good and evil is not out there, not in governments or systems or rulers. It begins within the boundaries of our own mind. We like to believe that goodness is the absence of darkness, that virtue means being pure, untouched by corruption. But Jung revealed a more unsettling truth. We cannot be truly moral until we confront what we are capable of. Every human being carries a shadow. The potential for deceit, for envy, for cruelty, for domination. We bury it beneath politeness and smiles, pretending it isn't there. But what we refuse to face doesn't disappear. It grows in silence, shaping us from below. To deny your darkness is to become its servant. To acknowledge it is to gain freedom over it. True virtue does not come from the fear of sin. It comes from the understanding of it. It is the strength to look at your own capacity for harm and still choose restraint, empathy, awareness. That choice, conscious, painful, and real, is what separates the naive from the wise, the innocent from the truly good. How much of our goodness is born from genuine compassion, and how much from fear of judgment, from the need to be seen as moral? When we stop pretending to be pure, we begin to understand what purity really means. Machiavelli's realism was not cynicism. It was a demand for honesty, to see both the world and the self without illusion. He wanted humanity to wake up, to open its eyes to the fragile balance between light and dark, because only those who know their shadow can wield their virtue with strength. The path to true morality is not the denial of evil. It is reconciliation with it, the courage to walk through your own darkness and return carrying light. In the end, Machiavelli and Jung speak the same truth. From opposite sides of the human mirror. To face the world as it is, you must first face yourself as you are. The greatest illusion of all is that good and evil live in separate worlds. They do not. They live in us, intertwined, inseparable, eternal. Machiavelli never celebrated cruelty. He simply exposed the blindness of innocence. He showed that virtue, without understanding, is fragile. That morality, without awareness, is a dream waiting to be shattered. His truth was dangerous not because it was dark, but because it was honest. Virtue is not weakness, but virtue without wisdom is. To be truly good, we must see evil clearly. To stay pure, we must understand corruption. To live wisely, we must dance with darkness, without losing the light. That is the paradox of power, the secret of the human soul. The world will always test your morality. It will tempt you to choose between innocence and strength. But real virtue does not hide from that choice. It stands in the middle of it, unafraid. Jung taught us to meet our shadow. Machiavelli taught us to meet the world. Together, they whisper the same timeless lesson. That light which denies the dark is fragile, but the light that knows the dark can never be extinguished. So as you walk through life, don't fear the parts of yourself that you've been taught to reject. Understand them. Master them. Because when you do, your goodness will no longer be naive. It will be powerful. And perhaps then, you will see the world not as it pretends to be, but as it truly is, and still choose to be kind. If this reflection spoke to you, if it stirred something quiet and uneasy within you, then I invite you to stay with this journey. Like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Lunithought for more explorations of philosophy, psychology, and the human condition. Because somewhere between the shadow and the light, between what we are and what we pretend to be, lies the truth we're all trying to understand. And the more we dare to face it, the freer we become.